Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to the Code Studio. My name is Abhishek, and today I want to talk about CSS Grid. So, CSS Grid is a really cool way for us to build modern, responsive websites with very little overhead on managing the positioning of each of these elements. As an example, I wanted to show you guys a quick and easy way on how you can get started with CSS Grid. In front of me, I have a very simple template that I'm trying to build, which is the top section is going to be a header. There is going to be a sidebar, the content 1, content 2, content 3, and in the end, we are going to have a footer. And this whole page is going to take up the entire viewport, and let's see how we can get started with this. So over here I have a basic React app running. It's the create React app template, which I have cleaned up most of the unnecessary code, and all I have with me is a bunch of divs with enclosed in a container. So I have a container, I have the header, I have uh, a sidebar, I have content 1, content 2, content 3, each of which are divs, and then we have a footer. Now let's get into thinking about how we can divide this into a grid. So the principle of creating a div is creating a grid is first to enclose all the elements that we have into a container, and that container will have the display of grid, and for that grid we have to basically describe how that grid is going to be. So we have to describe how its columns are going to be, and we also have to describe how its rows are going to be. Once we have done that, we will then go and describe which element falls in which area of the template. So I think it'll be more clear once you get started with writing the CSS for it. So let's get started. So this is what it looks like. There are just 6 divs which are one below the other. The only styling they have is they have um, different colors as their background, so that we can visualize them as different elements easily. So we are not going to make any more changes in the JS. Most of it is going to be done in the CSS. So let's get started there. So we have the container class, and we start with display grid. And so as we said, we have to decide on how the rows and columns are going to be. So going back to what we want to design, we can easily see that there are 4 distinct columns that we want to have: 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I want the ratios of these to be 1 is to 2 is to 2 is to 2. The reason for that is mostly because the sidebar is going to be much smaller than the actual content screens. So we can also do 1 is to 3 is to 3 is to 3 because the sidebar is super small. So let's do 1 is to 3 is to 3 is to 3. So we do that by saying 1fr, 3fr, 3fr, and 3fr. So fr is like a basic ratio element for the grid. So what it will do is it will divide the element in spaces of fr. So fr is like a dynamic ratio. Let's do the same for rows. And for the rows, we can see that there are distinct 3 rows: 1, 2, 3. And because the center section is going to be much larger than the header and footer, we can do something like 1 is to 5 is to 1. So we do that by saying 1fr, 5fr, 1fr. Okay. And the next thing we have to do is we have to create a template of how each section would fall into the grid. So we do that by saying grid template areas, and this is going to say what it is going to look like. And the way we do it is think of it as describing your grid in a matrix. So, so if you had to describe it in a matrix, you'd say the first uh, the first column is going to the first row is going to have just the header. So it's going to be header, 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 and header, because there are 4 columns. The second row is going to be the sidebar, the content 1, content 2, and content 3. And the third row is going to be footer, 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 and footer. So as you can see, the template, it's template areas. The template areas are just as described in this, in the visual template that we created. It's going to be header, sidebar, content 1, content 2, content 3, footer. So it's going to be header, sidebar, content 1, content 2, content 3, and footer. So if we save this and go to our React app, we'll see that not much has changed. It's definitely not the way we want it to be. And the reason for that is CSS still doesn't know which template areas refers to which element. So we can do that by assigning a name. So this is how we assign the area name to a particular element. Okay, and last but not the least, footer. So once we do that, we can see that it looks similar to what we had initially envisioned over here. And to make it better, what we can do is we can go ahead, and because we want it to take up the full viewport, we have to define the height of the container. We'll make it 100 VH. So what this will do is this will make it look like this, and this is exactly how we want our page to look. So this is super cool. What we have learned now is how we can divide our page into different maintainable grid templates. Now let's see how this would be useful in case of building a responsive site. So say, because in mobile view we don't have so much width, it's more height intensive content. What we will do is we are going to move all the elements one below the other. So we're going to do the header, the sidebar, content 1, content 2, content 3, and then the footer. So so basically what we have to do is we will have to change how the template looks in the mobile view. So let's do that. So, and 550px. So the containers CSS is going to get changed. So let's do that. So these two properties will not change. So let's keep them as it is. And we are only going to have one column. So let's change all of this. And we are going to have a different number of rows, because the sidebar will now become a separate row. So we're still going to keep the 1:5 ratio between the header and the content, and we're going to make the sidebar over here. Again, it's just as you would visualize it. So you want the header to be first, and then you will have your sidebar, and then you will have the C1, and then you'll have C2, and then you'll have C3, and in the bottom you will have just the footer, and this will help us for the mobile view. So as you can see, when you switch into the mobile view, um, the the contents change, and you can see that uh, the elements are now split into different rows, and they don't look the way we want them to look, because we haven't added this 5FR. Yep, much better. So what we had missed is we should have added th- the height of each of the contents. So we had just added one 5FR. We should have added two more. So this is what it will look like, and as you can see, the mobile view looks much better. And if we change into desktop, we can see it switches to the normal view that we had initially described. So these are the benefits of the CSS grid. Your template becomes the only changing factor, and everything inside it can be managed very effectively. So this was my quick start tutorial to CSS Grid. I hope this was useful to you guys. I'd urge you all to try out CSS Grid, especially if you are doing web development projects like building portfolio websites or building other e-commerce related websites. And that's all I had for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this video was useful. If it was, please do let me know in the comment section below. If you have suggestions for new videos or different topics, please do let me know in the comment section below. Always happy to communicate, chat, collaborate with you. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. Have a nice rest of the day or a good night, depending on which time zone you're in. See y'all. Bye bye.